Boys are going to bring the heat today.
As the leader of the Booner Pack, I lead from the front.
All right, boys. Lock in.
It's our core foundation, man. Grit.
I'm fired up. I'm fired the up, boys.
It's pumping right now. It's got my juices pumping, boys.
Welcome to the Crunch Time Sports Show with Jeff, Booner, Lucas. We are live, and it is Wednesday, January 22nd, and we have a show for you all, a big show, actually, because we have two guests on today. One of them being the Trey Wingo, which we are excited to be able to talk to him because of his knowledge, and honestly, to be able to talk to him, I think I don't remember anywhere locally having him on, so I've never really heard his opinions on what's been going on with the Lions, so I'm curious. I know he does a lot of work now, but it'll be good to talk to him. Then we have the doc. So we have two guests today. It's a packed show. AG's with the Jets. We'll get to it all.
AG's with the Jets. We'll slide that in there. Muted Boone. Come on now. I got you, though.
What a bad start to the show. You know what threw me off was we started the show. I didn't hear any crunch time music, and I heard the air horn just going berserk. And I was like, that maybe it's just something going on in my headset. I don't know. I just heard the air horn.
I didn't hear that. Hey, it's all right though, Boone.
I didn't hear anything. So I was sitting over here. I was a little thrown off. Hey, I'm pumped up. It's interesting. Today was just another weird day in Lions world. Like with AG going, Terrell Williams got a different job. Like everything right now, I feel like we're in like bizarro world a little bit, because like less than a week ago, it was just such a good time to be a Detroit Lions fan. And it's like, I'll say it every day. It feels like things are falling apart when it's really not. Like it's one of those situations where it's like you're in the world, so it feels like the whole world's falling in on you. But like, hey, and like Caleb was texting us today and was like, boys, this is bad. This is not good. Like things, and I'm like, all right. And then that was a little bit. And shout out Caleb, man. But so I do realize sometimes, hey, my man Caleb, you know, he overreaction sometimes. So I said, take a step back real quick, and I had to do it. I'm like, still the best roster in the NFL. We're living in a tornado or a hurricane. We're right in the middle of it. Like we just need the eye of the storm to come with the NFL draft. We'll get hit with a little bit more of it, and then it'll go past, and we'll be all good for next season. Just a lot of news, though. It's fun. It's good to cover it.
There's a lot of change, people. There's a lot of change, and I know change isn't always the best, but like we had conversations where I think regression with this Detroit Lions team is imminent, but it's not forever, and it doesn't mean that it's going to cost them a playoff spot, an NFC North spot, or a Super Bowl spot. All that's happening right now is change. And if you look around the NFL, the only team that sees to not have a lot of change, at least with the coaching staff, is the Kansas City Chiefs. But you look at their roster, Chiefs won a Super Bowl, lost Tyreek Hill. Chiefs won a Super Bowl, lost Tyrann Mathieu. You can just keep going down the list. So to your point, Boone, at least that roster is still there. The Lions could be losing coaches and players right now, but that roster, especially the core pieces,
locked in.
Even like the second tier core, which could be messed up to say, but you think about like the Brian Branches, Kirby Joseph, those type of players, they're not going anywhere either. So the Lions, yes, it's confusing, it's weird, and it's downright painful to think about what happened this season now that this window for the season is closed. But the Lions as an organization are probably still a top 3 franchise in the NFL going into next season. I couldn't
feels
imagine.
Weird to hear.
I would put right now just teams, and I would probably go Chiefs, Bills, and then Lions as far as like what they have going for them. I think you could put the Commanders up there, but we've seen
Eagles.
even last year, like CJ Stroud looked so fucking good last year. Saw it happen his second year. Is CJ Stroud bad? No. But again, change happens in the NFL. You can be really good one year as far as a positional player goes. You can be kind of mid the next year. So there's going to be a lot of changes, but I think the Lions are still going to be creme de la creme when it comes to the NFL world.
I'll tell you what, boys, it was weird today seeing Ben Johnson talking like a head coach for so long. Like it just felt like, and I know he's going to be a good coach. Like we were talking a little bit, like he's going to be a good head coach, at least in my opinion. And he's going to have to like get that Dan Campbell side of him, like as the head coach, like demand attention of the room. But to see him today, like the first couple minutes of his press conference, I was a little like, he seems pretty nervous. Like that didn't look like, we've seen Ben Johnson very comfortable in Detroit in the press conference room, and we've seen him talking to the media and to the fans. Seems good. Today, it definitely felt like there was like, I'm not saying he's not ready for it, but he definitely was like a little nervous. Like there was that video that came out. Someone just put it in our chat, Xavier D, where the guy was like over here to the right, and Ben like lifted his hands up and looked at his hands, and then it was like, oh, right hand, and then looked over, and that was just like, I don't know if he was trying to be funny or what, but like it's blowing up now, and it's just like seeing him as a head coach and having to do these interviews and stuff. It just feels very odd, very, very, very weird. I don't like it. I don't.
Yeah, and that's the NFL set up that way because that's why there's the term worst to first. Good teams are going to get their coaching staffs plucked apart. So this won't be the only time, especially if Dan gets this staff right, which everyone expects him to. It's going to happen again. Then it's going to happen again. So Dan Campbell will be tested as a head coach, losing all these great assistants. And that's why you love the sport, because the great teams that the Lions are facing lose all their assistants. But when it happens to the Lions, it's not fun, especially when they go to a division rival. And when I watched that press conference, man, that confirmed to me is like, I think he's more than ready, to be honest with you, just by his responses. Like, you could tell how much Dan has impacted him. He's literally gotten to see Matt Patricia up close and then Dan Campbell up close turn around a franchise. Like, he understands.
Even in Miami, like he mentioned that today, like he saw Miami too, and he was like, I got to literally learn all the bad things in the NFL.
So you could tell, like, the verbiage he used. I know people came at him for the sleeping giant comment, but when he says there has to be alignment within an organization, like, you could tell all that's from Dan Campbell. Like, he's been influenced a lot. So we'll see how that goes. But AG, it's official.
Chicago.
It's official. Aaron Glenn is the head coach of the New York Jets, and that happened today. He got the offer yesterday. We actually broke it on the news. You talked about it, how they gave him an offer and he had to kind of figure out who he wanted on his staff. Now we got the official, hey, he's going there. There's already rumored guys he'll take: Mark Brunell, Steve Wilkes, expected to go with him. Steve Wilkes, I'm pretty upset with, because wanted that man to be the defensive coordinator, but it is what it is. AG, he's in New York. Best of luck to him. In all seriousness, for him, I know he has ties to the organization. I know he likes what they have on defense, but man, the AFC is a quarterback-driven conference. It's like when Jim went to the AFC, he chose Justin Herbert for a reason.
Yeah. Quarterback.
And AG's going to the Jets, which, like, I wish him the best of luck, but that's a tough job. Like, if he can do that, man, I would be very impressed with no quarterback and that division, which led by the Bills, but that conference, it's tough, man.
Can you pull up my tweet one more time? Can I ask a question real quick? Do you have me in a Red Wings folder?
No. Well,
see that at the top there? Am I going? Am I a Red Wings insider now? What's happening?
No, I have I've attached myself to other people's lists, and you are on this person's list. So
I'm on the Red Wings list.
I guess so. Yeah.
Come on now, Boone.
Here we go. Hey, very versatile reporter over here. You got in me.
Yeah, it's very versatile.
That?
But the Lions are they're expected to get 2/3, 2 compensatory picks, 2025, 2026 third-round picks for AG leaving. Huge. So Lions win with draft capital. But we'll see. I haven't seen anything. The reports from, I think it was Jordan Schultz, who said Kelvin Shepard is expected to go with him. Haven't seen too much following after that. So
Jordan Schultz, he's the one that tweeted out your guy. What's his name?
Steve Wilkes.
Steve Wilkes. So it's like there's like conflicting reports a little bit with Jordan Schultz. I'm interested to see who his full staff is, and same with Ben, like Ben's staff, like the Hank Fraley stuff. I don't know if you guys saw today, and shout out Mark Ryan. But he like tweeted, and this is a crazy tweet on its own too. And I don't know. It's like, it's just, you don't know what to believe when all this is happening, because he tweets out, it is like, hey, my dentist down the street, my dentist says he lives next to Hank Fraley, and Hank Fraley told him he's staying in Detroit. So it's like, I'm just at this point, boys, and I don't know where you are, like, just wait to see what happens here in Detroit, especially when it comes to these positional coaches too. Yeah, Mark Ryan, true story. My dentist lives on the same street as Lions offensive line coach Hank Fraley. He told me yesterday, Fraley told him he isn't going anywhere. Didn't share because I don't consider my dentist a reliable. Like, that in a sentence on its own.
But sharing.
I don't consider my dentist as a reliable source, but maybe I should have. That is ridiculous. That's a crazy. And I like Mark. Hey, Mark's a good guy. He knows the show, supports the show. But that sentence alone just like I'm like, all right, we got to wait to see. But I think, and I'm gonna say this about AG. We've already talked about Ben a lot. I think AG is going to be good in New York. Like, I do. I know Robert Saleh didn't work there, defensive-minded head coach. And I know the whole situation with the quarterback. I think AG is going to have a bit of a leash there in New York because he's a former, New York Jet. He was drafted there. Obviously has a good relationship with the ownership and everyone there. I think there's going to be a leash, whether they keep him don't know who Terry is. Shout out Terry. But whether they keep him there with Aaron Rodgers and have Aaron Rodgers there another year, or they say, hey, you can let's get rid of Aaron and let's go a different direction. Once he gets his quarterback there, and if he gets a good OC in there, whether it's Mark Brunell or not, I do think AG, just his mindset as a head coach, Jeff, I mean, I think it was me and you had talked about it a couple of months ago that we always just thought AG might just be a better head coach than he was a coordinator, just based off of like how he is with players, how he goes about his everyday. Like you see him addressing the team consistently, like in Hard Knocks, in the Lions videos that they put out every week. Like you're always seeing AG just with that head coaching mindset. And that was the question with Ben, where you like never see Ben do stuff like that. And like when you see Ben speak to the media when we're watching and we're at like doing all of those things, it's like Ben's really not like as up in arms as AG is, and AG's a vocal guy. So I think I think like if anyone, like we're talking about, can Ben Johnson bring that Dan Campbell culture to Chicago? I don't even think it's a question for AG. Like I think AG is going to bring in that like Dan Campbell culture instantly in Chicago or in New York, and that's going to flip that whole organization around. I do think the Jets are going to be good with AG. I really do. I think that's a great spot for him. The quarterback's question mark.
I think it's the best spot for him. It's definitely better than New Orleans when you look at their salary cap situation, just how the roster is. Derek Carr is not taking a pay cut. So I think he made the smart decision going to the Jets from New Orleans. But I still think the Jets is a major, major uphill battle that AG can definitely, I think, turn the culture around there. But the question is, and that's the problem in New York, is you have to win like big games. Like they're done with mediocrity. The last coach that did bring them success was Rex Ryan, a defensive guy. But since then, you have not seen that success even close to reckon with what Rex Ryan did. So AG, he's going to try to do some things there. But you're in a division with Josh Allen. You're in the same conference as Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Herbert and Harbaugh are going to be a problem. Stroud's going to bounce back. So, again, I'm not mad at AG or upset like the way I was with Ben Johnson, simply because, one, you went outside the NFC, but two, you went outside the NFC North, which I'm like double okay with. But I think it's definitely going to be tough for AG. To your point, Booner, like he can definitely turn the culture around. But does that mean it's going to lead to wins? I don't know. It's going to be tough to see, but AG made the right choice going to the Jets instead of New Orleans, in my opinion.
I want to bring up this. Appreciate Tom Izzo for the super chat. Bad head coach, but good DC. Thoughts on Eberflus, yay or nay? I think we're all yay.
Yeah.
But here's
I'm a 9 legend.
I'm just going. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Toledo native.
What were we going to say, Boone?
I was just saying I'm really big on, especially like the defensive coordinator. We talked about it yesterday. I'm big on like an experienced DC, maybe a former head coach that didn't work out, like the Dennis Allen train and all of that. Like I'm in on that. Yeah. Like I'm in on the Eberflus thing because like you've seen it with different coaches around the NFL, like Jim Schwartz didn't really work. Like not a bad head coach, but didn't work out as a head coach. Great DC. Like you've seen it with certain guys around the NFL, and I think like at least defensively with the players you have, and you're talking about like the Hutch, the Brian Branch, the Kirby's, Terrions, like I just feel like you want a guy in there for a couple of years to build on something. And defensively, it's like, to me, it's just go get a guy like that, like where Eberflus comes in and he's there for 2 or 3 years. Great defensive mind, just isn't good at controlling a whole locker room, and it isn't good at running day-to-days with the team and time management, timeouts and those sort of things. Like he just, that head coaching side that you need, just doesn't have that. But he's really good defensively. So I'm in on that. Same with Dennis Allen. Like Dennis Allen, like that to me, it's like should be at the top of your list. We could probably take Robert Saleh off too, huh, boys?
Yeah,
right?
he's probably gonna
Jacksonville.
Yeah. Or go back to San Francisco. I think it's one of the two. I don't think he comes to Detroit. Like I think if he becomes a DC again, I think he goes to the 49ers, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Shout out Full Slate Farms because Corey Woods, he said it for, dude, he nailed it. and we talked about it after he left and the days after, but you mentioned it too, Boone. Aubrey Pleasant interviewing for the DC job. Corey Woods came on our show Monday and said that there's a possibility that Dennis Allen could be holding out to see what AG does. And Dennis Allen has not accepted. You don't hear anything with Dennis Allen to the Bears anymore. It's been quiet. And it was kind of, you're hearing it, and then all of a sudden you're not. And now AG's gone. I bet you any money, man, Dan's on the phone with that man. He's going to try and get Dennis Allen to Detroit. That would be, to me, an excellent hire. If
the Lions were able to land Dennis Allen, I understand you're losing Ben Johnson, but that defense is going to be elite.
It's going to be
elite. Like you look at the defenses that he had during his heyday in New Orleans. Like you think about the guys like Cam Jordan, Devontae Davis, you got Marshawn Lattimore. Like you can just keep going down the list of not guys that they've only drafted that have been good, but the way that Dennis Allen has been able to develop defensive talent, he would be a home run hit. Like all there's a lot of change going on in Detroit. Dan, Brad, they haven't hired anybody. You bring in Dennis Allen. Go ahead, hire whoever at OC. Not saying go hire bum, but if you put a first-year OC in Tanner Engstrom, but you got Dennis Allen on the defensive side on the other side, perfectly fine with it. Perfectly fine. Because Dennis Allen obviously has ties with New Orleans. Dan Campbell plays fucking aggressive defense. Like it's old school defense. Fits exactly what Dan Campbell's all about. And he'd have those linebackers flying all over the field.
And I see, shout out Demetrius. Appreciate you for tuning in. I haven't seen you in a little bit, man. Nice having you back. But to address the Shep, is he worthy of a promotion? We talked about this yesterday, Demetrius, how we're kind of in lockstep with it. I think what Kelvin Shepard has going against him is I don't know if Dan's going to want to bring 2 rookie coordinators into next year. I think at that point you're talking about that's tough to have 2 rookie coordinators. We've seen that fail a ton of times. So I don't think that's the smart move. Now, the reason why I think they can get away with a rookie offensive coordinator is because Dan Campbell more on the offensive side of the ball. So I think that's why Tanner will probably get that job. I think Dan wants someone on defense you don't have to worry about. Not saying Kelvin can't coach. He can coach. But as a rookie coordinator, man, that's tough. In a year where you're expected to win a Super Bowl, at least Dan on the offense will have his hands more on it. Defensively, there's a reason. AG, he just let AG do his thing. He kind of weighed in, just check in what AG's game plan was. But that's all AG, man. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I don't think – I think Kelvin, he's just gonna have to wait his turn, man. Unfortunately, it's just I think he's like going with AG would be ideal because you can learn right under AG, and AG would call plays defensively.
Do you think though there's a world where like Dan does end up saying, "Hey, I want to go get experienced guys on both sides"? And I know like we love the Tanner Engstrom thing, and a lot of the Lions fans do, but like again, you look at an example like Philly 2 years ago when their 2 coordinators go take the Cardinals and the Colts job. And this is the example we've talked about a million times. And then the next year, they're winning. But when things hit the fan, everything goes wrong. And the offense is having problems. They fire their coordinators. They have to move on, and they go get Vic Fangio. And then they also bring in Kellen Moore, 2 guys who are very experienced in the NFL. And I wonder if Dan's looking at something like that. Obviously, I don't know if he's like specifically looking at that situation, but he knows like, hey, like we're not in a position anymore to where it's like 3 years ago, Ben Johnson, hey, we're still building this thing up. Like you're going to be a part of that building block. And same with Aaron Glenn, like, hey, first-time coaches, like, hey, let's all build this together. It's like, no, this thing's already built. You have the best roster probably in the NFL, and you're going to be a top 3 Super Bowl favorite next year. I wonder if Dan looks at it because we really haven't had the conversation. That was why I brought up the Dan Orlovsky thing. It's because in my mind, it's like everyone's so set in stone on Tanner Engstrom where it's like, hey, I wonder if Dan's actually going out and about to go look for an offensive coordinator, and he wants to go find an experienced guy. I'm not saying Dan O is experienced at all. I'm just saying different guys that have already been head coaches offensively that have gotten fired, or guys who have been OCs in the NFL who I don't have any name. Maybe I should go find some names today because I'm just thinking about it off the top of my head.
Especially with like, you're not, we talk about it all the time. Like we all knew these coaches in Detroit going into the season, the Hank Fraley's, like the Kelvin Shepard, but it's so hard to know the other teams, like positional guys, and who's really doing something. Like I know Kellen Moore went from Dallas offensive coordinator to Philly offensive coordinator, but you don't see that a lot of times. Like normally if you're a defensive coordinator and your name's getting brought up for jobs, like you're going to stay in that situation until you get offered a bigger one. You don't see like the lateral unless it's guys coming out of retirement. I would, but with your point, Boone, like I would prefer for them to get 2 experienced guys. But
Me
just
too.
from
Yes,
what we've
going into
heard
next
from
year.
Dan, yeah, but just what we've heard, I think it'll be, and I don't even think like Jeff, your points about Tanner are spot on. Like, I'm not denying that, but it's obviously not a lock. But I think from what we've heard, it'd be someone within the organization. Defensively, though, it doesn't even, like, you guys know, I've been like Kelvin Shepherd. Now the time's here. Dennis Allen, Rex Ryan. Like, give me somebody with experience, because that's what you're going to win a Super Bowl with.
Like, hey, I'm like an example. Like, if Brian Dable, if he would have gotten fired in New York, that's like someone where it's like, hey, that's a guy who is a very good offensive mind, and he worked with Josh Allen, and they had a great offense. But he didn't work out in New York as a head coach. There's an opening here as OC. I would not like that. That would be an example for me this year. I don't think there was really any offensive coaches that were let go, though, that I could think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think what Dan said was very telling in his press conference. And it's kind of like, it's different from what the Eagles did with Kellen Moore, because they were coming off such a disaster year offensively that they wanted someone to come in and, build an offense around Jalen Hurts and Saquon, but really they needed help. I think with Dan, it's more, hey, we know what works. We want similar verbiage. We want Jared to have a good rapport with this guy. So I think that's what, like, him saying all that, like similar verbiage, all this stuff, like keep it the same, not all the same, but mostly so Jared's comfortable, tells me it's Tanner. That's what would, unless you're bringing in Brian Dable and you're like, hey, Brian, all your ideas, these are our ideas. And he's like, okay. But I think they want what works, with Jared. I don't think it's like, that's what would point me to believe it would be within the organization. That's why. Because he really talked how much Jared's going to weigh in.
That was interesting to me when he says,
how
hey,
they want to keep it pretty similar, verbiage wise, schematically, like they want to keep everything. So Jared's
then again, it could be, and people are going to be mad about it. I know anyone outside that's in the building outside of Tanner, people are going to be mad about like if it's Scotty Montgomery, if it's Mark Brunell and he ends up not going to New York, or the one that really keeps hitting my mind, and I think this is actually very realistic, and I think the reason he hasn't left yet is because of this. It's Hank Fraley. Like, I think a pitch for Hank. Like, I think Hank could get the OC job in Chicago if he wants it, because Ben said today in his press conference, boys, like he was like, they kept asking him, like, how are you going to be able to be a play caller and a head coach? Like, that's a big responsibility. And a lot of coaches get fired sometimes when they try to do both. And he said that was why he stayed another year, is to learn how to manage that time. And he said one thing that he wants to do is to make sure he has an OC who's able to set him up for success early in every game week and knows exactly what he likes and knows how he goes about it. That's Hank Fraley. That's Hank Fraley. So it's like a guy that's already familiar with the way Ben Johnson goes about weeks. But again, there's a rumor from the dentist. Again, the dentist. This is where the dentist comes in play again. We have Mark Ryan's dentist is saying Hank Fraley's staying in Detroit. And if I'm Hank Fraley, the only way you would stay in Detroit is if you get offered the OC job. And that's literally the only reason that if I'm Hank Fraley. He got a second interview in Seattle, and he most likely could have that OC job in Chicago if he wanted it. So why would you stay unless you're getting an OC job here in Detroit? I'm just connecting the dots there, boys. I'm not like being like Hank Fraley. I'd rather have Tanner just because of the pass game coordinator and all of that.
Yeah, that continuity.
But if I'm connecting the dots realistically, boys, like if you're Hank, why would you stay if you have OC offers or opportunities? It's an interesting. I don't know.
I wouldn't be mad at either.
Selfishly,
Jeff would be so mad.
Jeff, realistically, would you be upset? Not even for your narrative. Like, take the narrative, the Tanner Engstrom narrative out of there. Would you be kind of like perplexed, be like, why the hell are you going with Hank Fraley? What would your reaction to that be?
Yeah, I mean, I would for sure. It would mean to me that Tanner, he is that bad that even them grooming him and they don't pick him, then that's a Tanner Engstrand problem. That means he is that bad and we are all wrong. Like, the way they've been grooming this guy to be the next offensive coordinator and he doesn't get it, I would be shocked. Like, I'd be like, wow, they must have last minute been like, this guy is clueless, or maybe he's not ready. Maybe that's but the way they've been promoting him to passing game coordinator, and like, I think he's up. I would be shocked.
I want to I'm just looking right here, and shout out to Doc who's joining later today. Detroit Lions on Sports Illustrated on SI. I'm looking at Seattle Seahawks on SI right now, and the topic and like the headline is stars aligning for Seahawks to land Hank Fraley as new offensive coordinator. This was 3 hours ago. And one of the things down here, it says, the Detroit Lions and Dan Campbell are poised to promote passing game coordinator Tanner Engstrand to offensive coordinator to succeed Johnson, and looking to stay in house, but a different approach than Fraley. They're looking to do that. Obviously, as it says, putting all the puzzle pieces together. Fraley's one of the guys in the options here after the second interview that they feel like is an option in Seattle. So that could be a thing. I mean, how about that? If the dentist said he's staying in Detroit and he goes to Seattle of all places. Yeah. Imagine this. Imagine this. And shout out again. I hate doing it because Mark Ryan's a good guy, man. But imagine if the dentist said, yeah, he's not going to Chicago, and Mark Ryan took it as, oh, he's not going to Chicago, so he stayed in Detroit, but didn't consider the Seattle option. Yeah, that would be, I'll tell you what, that'd be something else. That would be something else.
Yeah, I hope Hank doesn't leave, man. I love Hank. He's like just one of them glue guys, you know? You need just a great offensive line coach. Those guys love him. Frank, Panay, like they all love him. Mm-hmm.
Oh man, I wonder why he wouldn't go to Chicago. I don't see a world where he would be like, I don't want to be in.
It makes perfect sense from the Chicago's standpoint.
I think honestly, I think like if you're an O-line coach like Hank, it's like he's helped build this one. It's like he can help build another one, and his resume would be insane, especially if he's the OC there, even though he's not calling plays. But like, think about this for Hank. Like, imagine if Hank was like to Ben, I'm not going to Chicago. I'm not going to be that guy. And I like Hank. This is like, I'm not doing that.
And especially like to your point, Booner, like obviously Tanner's probably the number one guy, but they're not just going to interview Tanner and be like, close the books, you're the OC. They're probably going to interview Frank. And if you're Hank Fraley, I don't know why I keep saying Frank. If you're Hank and you possibly can land the Detroit Lions job, which you've already been in the situation, you know the players, if you could land that job as the OC, or you could go to the Chicago Bears, where like it looks like a great situation, just like it has been for like the past 5 years. Turns out it's not. And like I said, Ben Johnson could have like wins there. They are not going to be a team that wins the NFC North year one. Like that's just not going to happen. They could be a good team. They're not winning the NFC North. Detroit Lions very well could. Detroit Lions could very well go on to win a Super Bowl next year. And Hank Fraley could be the OC. Guess what? He could go be a head coach now if he wanted to. Or he could be a head coach or an offensive coordinator again. Go be a head coach somewhere. Like I think it makes more sense for him to develop in Detroit versus taking a chance going to Buddy Ben to Chicago, where historically they've been awful. That offensive line last year was awful, and you could potentially try to turn around there, but you're not turning around an offensive line in 1 or most likely 2 years.
No, I mean, I don't think they would. I don't think in like Chicago, like and Ben said it today, feels like a little bit of a long-term build for that offensive line. He said they were going to take the same approach as they did here in Detroit, which is fair. Like you can't build an offensive line like this overnight. You can't. You have to have your core pieces, which I don't think they have essentially right now. It's weird. It's crazy though. We're thinking about Hank Fraley. Like we're sitting here. It's like the Hank Fraley sweepstakes. It's like AG and Ben Johnson officially moved on, and we're sitting here with where's Hank Fraley going to land? It's a great positional coach, great offensive line coach.
Yeah, we have real quick. I want to get to these. Ryan says Devontae Adams for Hendon Hooker, fellas. Thank you for the $2, Ryan. Sure. I mean, here we go with the Devontae Adams sweepstakes again. I
never thought I would see that.
Yeah, it always happens this time of year. Appreciate you, Ryan, for that. Dante151, appreciate you. Member for 8 months. He says, man, it's nice to see the Pistons playing bully ball. Well, you are correct about that. At least we have a team still alive. That's always nice.
See the Kirby Joseph profile picture. Takes me back a couple months back of me placing a Kirby Joseph Defensive Player of the Year bet, and I just it's the same thing with my. Yeah, I was sitting there. I was looking at my future bets, and the one that's just still sitting there, it's Josh Allen MVP, Aiden Hutchinson Defensive Player of the Year, and Jaden Daniels Rookie of the Year, and that one like plus 4,000 or something. It like breaks my heart to see like Jaden's gonna win it. Josh Allen potentially can win MVP, and then I'm sitting there with Aiden Hutchinson. Season-ending injury, just it's a brutal ticket.
All right, Hutch will get it. It's just a year delayed. You know, he'll get it next year.
Yeah. I mean, I wrote Jaden Daniels. I had that. Josh Allen. It's just brutal ticket to have.
Well, you know, we got a special guest. All right. And
Come on,
this man, if you guys obviously we posted it everywhere, and we're very gracious that he's given his time for the fellas here because he needs no introduction, but I'm gonna give him one anyway. All right. When you think of ESPN, you think of Trey Wingo. When you think of NFL Live, you think of Trey Wingo. Host of the pregame Power Up with Trey Wingo on DraftKings. Does also work. We like golf, PGA Tour, NBC Sports. Trey Wingo, let's welcome him to the show. What's going on, Trey?
Guys, how are you? Great to be with you. And that introduction reminded me of when Seth MacFarlane was hosting the Academy Awards and said, "Now a man who needs no introduction," and walked away and didn't introduce whoever it was. He was
yeah.
Well done on your part.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, we're big Lions fans, and it's been a devastating couple of days. All right. We got this,
bad.
You get the number 1 seed. We're on cloud 9. The Super Bowl's already ours. We're getting our rings fitted. And then, you face the 6th seed, a rookie quarterback who doesn't look like a rookie quarterback. You lose that game. It's devastating. And then the next couple of days, the entire coaching staff is gone, Trey. So what have you kind of made of the upset on Saturday, the year for the Lions with all the injuries, and and we'll get to the coaches, but what'd you make of Saturday leading up to everything?
Well, let's start with Saturday, right? Because, since the start of 2023, if you go through the last 2 regular seasons, the Lions had the best record in football, 27-7 over those 34 games. They averaged 30.2 points per game, best in the NFL. And so when I look at what happened Saturday night, I say, okay, they scored 31, which is essentially what they've done, their average for 2 straight seasons, which has been best in the NFL. But they gave up 45. And you cannot overstate the devastation they've had injury-wise on defense. You guys know this better than anybody. You're talking about Aiden Hutchinson. They had 16 guys at one point on injury reserve just on the defensive side of the ball. And just to do the math, that's all 11 starters and 5 backups. Like, that's literally what they were dealing with.
My God.
And I just think, with all due respect to Jaden Daniels and Dan Quinn and Scary Terry and everything that they did, at the end of the day, I'm not sure if there's a team anywhere that could overcome what the Lions had to deal with on the defensive side of the ball injury-wise. So it was devastating. It was heartbreaking. First time since we have had seeding in the NFL in the playoffs in 1975 that the Lions had the number 1 seed. I'm not sure anybody could overcome those injuries. And I think that's more than anything else. That's what I take away from that game.
Yeah, Trey, I appreciate you joining the show. I do need an introduction. My name's Booner. Nice to meet you. I do want to ask you, though. Hey,
Booner,
good to meet you,
go.
Trey. One thing, though, obviously, the last 48 hours, it's been like a whirlwind of emotions here in Detroit, losing the coordinators. Today, AG gone. Ben Johnson, literally within 24 hours of losing that divisional round game. What are your thoughts on honestly just both moves, like Ben Johnson going to Chicago? How do you think that'll work there with Caleb Williams? And then today, the big news of Aaron Glenn going to taking over that New York Jets team with Aaron Rodgers and Woody Johnson and that crowd over there.
Well, I guess my first question would be, with Aaron Rodgers? Really?
Yeah,
sure
that's a
about
good,
that?
great
true.
point.
What's the line from the Detroiters? Are you sure about that?
Yeah.
Are you sure about that? Look, first of all, this always happens, right? I mean, the Eagles lost Super Bowl 57 to the Chiefs and then immediately lost Jonathan Gannon and Shane Steichen. Gannon goes to Arizona, Steichen goes to Indianapolis to be the head coach. So this is to be expected. The hard part for me is that I appreciate Dan Campbell's honesty. Like, after they lost the NFC Championship game last year when they were up by 17 points at the half, and I questioned his decisions to not kick field goals in the second half on 4th down and go for it like he always does when they, maybe a field goal would have settled things down for them. And he said very candidly, look, everybody says they'll be back, but you never know if you're going to be here again. And, the Bengals said that absolutely after they lost Super Bowl 56 to the Rams 23-20. Well, not only have the Bengals not been back, they've missed the playoffs 2 of the last 3 years. So if you're being honest about it, nobody knows anything about what's going to happen. Do I think that the Lions can have continued success? The answer is absolutely yes, because I think the core of their players is still intact, but there are going to be some things that are changing, and they're going to have to adapt to those things. So you always hope for the best in those situations, but nobody knows. Like, I'll tell you one of my favorite stories of covering the NFL for all these years. When Dan Marino's second year in the NFL as the Miami Dolphins quarterback, he threw for 48 touchdowns, which was at that time the record. And they made it to the Super Bowl against the Redskins, and they lost 27-17. And after that game, Dan was in the back of a limo, and Jimmy Cephalo, who was a veteran wide receiver, was riding back from him from the game to their hotel. And Jimmy was all depressed and got in the car. And Dan Marino, in his second year in the NFL, had a 6-pack or 12-pack of beer in a cooler in the car and had this big shit-eating grin on his face. It cost Jimmy a beer and said, "Boy, did we get the shit kicked out of us or what?" Actually, I think that was 38-16 against the. I'm sorry, I might have gotten that wrong. It was 38-16 against the 49ers, and Jimmy was like, "I've been in this league for 8 years. This was my one chance. You don't understand." And Dan was like, "We'll be back next year," and the Dolphins never got back. They never got back. So I hope nothing but good things for the Lions. I hope nothing but awesome things for the Lions. The reality is you may never get back there. It may never happen. And that's why I appreciate Dan so much, because it's so easy for a coach to say, "Well, we'll be back. We did this year. We'll do it again." It doesn't really happen that way. And there are a lot of things that the Lions are going to have to answer. And it's going to be interesting, especially in a division where you had such a competitive division, the NFC North, where you had the Vikings win as many games as they did, and you had the Packers win as many games as they did. And now, as you said, Ben Johnson throwing shots at Matt LaFleur in his opening press conference.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Like, dude, win a game. Like, I respect it. I respect it. Win one game as the head coach before you start throwing shots at other coaches in your division. So it's going to be a time of transition. There's no question about it.
Yeah, Trey. And again, pleasure for having you on the show. I grew up on you. You're a legend to me. So it's great to actually be talking to you right now. But it was kind of a good transition. Bring up Dan Marino. Dan Marino, no one will deny the talent. One of the best arms in NFL history. Yeah. But what does he not have? A Super Bowl ring. When you look at Jared Goff, obviously he doesn't have the arm of Dan Marino, but he is a great quarterback. Do you think he's the quarterback for the Detroit Lions that could lead them to a Super Bowl? Obviously, it's a team sport. You see Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, there's time where he leads that team. Do you think Jared Goff is the guy to Detroit to get that Super Bowl ring?
Well, I think he can get them there. I don't think there's any question about that.
Yeah.
But we have to acknowledge that it's a lot easier to get to the Super Bowl through the NFC these days than it is through the AFC. Right. Let's just be honest about it. Look, I am, as you know from my Twitter or X profile. No, fuck that. It's never X. It's always, wins and losses, I do not believe are a quarterback stat. Teams win games, teams win championships.
Yeah.
But there's no question that your quarterback play skews how many games you can win and how important it is to have a quarterback that can do the things necessary to put you in position to win games. I believe that Jared Goff is that guy. I believe he can be that guy. And to your question about the Super Bowl, outside of Jaden Daniels, what quarterbacks are we talking about in the NFC? Jordan Love?
Stafford sticks around.
If Stafford sticks around, like Brock Purdy in San Francisco, it's not the same as the AFC where you have Patrick Mahomes, you have Josh Allen, you have Lamar Jackson, you have Joe Burrow, who arguably had the best season of any quarterback this past year, and his team didn't make the postseason. So, yes, to answer your question, I do believe Jared Goff can be the quarterback to take the Lions to a Super Bowl. The question is, once he gets there, are they good enough to beat a team from the AFC?
Okay. Yeah, Trey, I mentioned when I introduced you that ESPN NFL Live, we think of Trey Wingo. Another thing, the NFL draft. And I know you've had a ton of experience covering the NFL draft. We had the draft last year in Detroit. We were able to go down there, and it was a lot of fun. But what are some of your any great experiences? I know you have a ton of them, but stories just covering the NFL draft that you kind of reflect back on?
Well, here's what I would say. I think the draft, and again, this is going to sound like I'm sort of, blowing my own horn here, but I think the draft is the hardest thing to do in all of television, in televised sports. Reality television is very unreal. Like the cameras are there and how you react to it. I'm telling you that when we did the draft, there is no script. There's no plan. There's no outline of how these things are going to go. Like, how much money I could have made a few years ago if I had said, hey, there's this offensive lineman out of Ole Miss named Laramie Tunsil. I'm going to put down $1,000 that right before he gets drafted, there's going to be someone that leaks a video of him smoking weed from a gas mask bong for World War II. You know what I mean? That shit doesn't come up.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen.
Right.
And so you have to adjust. And that's the fun part for me in the draft. There are going to be 17 guys that are drafted that 99% of the people watching the draft have never heard of. And you need to be prepared for that. So the best way I can describe that part of it is when you're doing the draft, once the Super Bowl ends, I took a week off, and then immediately I started preparing for the draft, which was at the end of April. And I had a great researcher with me named Jim Carr, who was the absolute best. He did the draft. He did Monday Night Football. He worked with me at Caesar Sports for a couple of years. And he would put together this dossier, this file of all the players and all these interesting and amazing facts about them. And I would just reread those and study those. So whenever that person came up, I would have that information ready. And one of the great things that Jim ever did was he did a profile on Joe Burrow. And he found this information from Joe's AAU coach, AAU basketball coach, when he was like 9 years old. And he said, we were down like 9 points with a minute to play. Everyone thought it was over. But Joe refused to quit. He made 8 free throws in a row and then two buckets to win the game. And afterwards, I went up to his parents and said, look, I'm his AAU basketball coach, but I'm also a sociology professor at Ohio University. I study the criminal mind. And your son has a lot of the things that both first responders and serial criminals have in common. The point being, like, whether the building is on fire or he's taking out the garbage, his pulse doesn't change. And the thing that I took away from that is, like, it's a good thing Joe Burrow decided to play football and not become Dexter.
Yeah.
He would have been the greatest serial killer of all time.
Yeah.
And no one would have ever figured it out. But this guy just knew that sort of instinctively about Joe Burrow. Like, that's how his mind works. And that's the thing that I appreciated most about the draft. The stuff that Jimmy Carr could give me that I could relay to the audience about these kids that are being drafted that nobody had ever heard of. And that was the fun part for me. That was by far the most fun part for me.
I need to get myself a Jimmy Carr. That's what I.
Everyone needs a Jimmy Carr in their life.
I need a Jimmy Carr for this draft for sure.
Yeah.
I did want to ask you, and we have to ask you the question having you on here. Obviously, you're at ESPN for 20 plus years, and kind of the transition when you left there. Just want to kind of get your story and just kind of hear, like, towards the end of your career at ESPN, how that transition was. What was behind you, kind of the departure of ESPN and all of that, and then kind of getting into. I know you did podcasts for a while now in the DraftKings and having your own shows here. What kind of went behind all of that?
Yeah, it's real simple for me. I loved ESPN for most of the time I was there. And I love doing NFL Live. I love doing the draft. I love doing U.S. Open and an Open Championship or the British Open golf. I loved all of that. I did Wimbledon. I did U.S. Open tennis. And then Chris Berman was going to be moved on for Sunday Countdown. And I felt like I had earned that job. And they were adamant about giving it to another person based on something that had nothing to do with merit. And that bothered me greatly. And then they offered me the morning radio show with Golick, Mike Golick, who is still a very good friend of mine. And I do work with him with DraftKings and Golick Jr. But I knew really immediately right away that the morning radio show was not for me. The hours are difficult, and I didn't like not watching the games and pretending like I watched the games. That was the biggest thing for me.
What do you mean by that, Trey?
Well, if you're getting up at 3:30 in the morning, you're not watching an NBA game that goes on at midnight. It's not
Yeah.
happening. It's not possible. I watched every NFL game, and I watched, the college football playoffs before they were expanded. But you can't watch every game. You can't do it. I didn't like faking it. I didn't like pretending like I watched the games. And so that was a problem for me. And I told them very early on, hey, this was great and I appreciate it, but I don't want to do this going forward. And I thought I was being a good employee and saying, you need to prepare for something else, and hopefully we can find something else I can do. Because to this day, the 2020 NFL draft, still the highest rated draft of all time. If you look at press releases when they put them out for NFL Live, they say highest rating since 2017, which means the ratings that happened when I was on the show were higher than the ratings they are now. And I had a friend of mine that told me, hey, they think this radio thing is a big promotion for you. And if you don't take it, they'll hold it against you. So I took the job for the right reasons. And then I immediately knew that wasn't for me. And I quit the job for the right reasons because I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do something that I wasn't fully invested in. And I didn't want to do it because it made me more money. And I didn't want to do it because somebody else thought it was important. I wanted to do the things that I wanted to do. And since that time, I've been able and very lucky, whether it's through Caesars or DraftKings or the podcasts or NBC Sports or PGA Tour, where I do all these things, I'm doing the things that I want to do. I don't want to do the things that somebody else that tells me is important for them to do.
Love that.
So for me, most people would say, oh, this is the highest paid job you'll ever have in your life. Just suck it up. And I was like, no, this is not for me. And I'll give you an example of just how this has sort of been my whole MO my entire career. I started out very early in my career as a page at NBC in New York. And if you ever watch the show 30 Rock, the character Jack with the blue blazer, like that's what a page was. You gave guided tours of the building and did all this menial work and all this kind of stuff. Well, when I was a page, a guy named Mark McCormick, who founded the company IMG, International Management Group, which is the largest sports marketing agency in the world, offered me a job to work with them at covering Wimbledon clothing lines and the pens and all this kind of stuff. And I would be doing all this international travel, but it wasn't really what I wanted to do. So he offered me a job and I said, thank you, no, but I really want to, if I don't do this thing with broadcasting, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. Like whether I failed or succeeded was irrelevant. I had to try. And if I didn't try, I wouldn't be able to live with myself. So I turned him down and I kept being a page at NBC. And then I got a local broadcasting job in Binghamton, New York, which is market 1,765, making no money. And from there, I moved on to Allentown, Pennsylvania, and then St. Louis, Missouri, and then ESPN. The point of me telling you this is that I followed what I thought was the right thing for me. And then in about 2008, I got a call from a guy named Sandy Montag, who at that time was the biggest sports agent in the world. He had Bob Costas, he had James Brown, he had everybody. He had John Madden, everybody that was anybody in sports. Sandy Montag was their agent, and he was at IMG. And he called me and said, "Hey, I really like your work. I would like to represent you." The point of this story is I turned down a job working for IMG to follow my passion and to follow what I believed I wanted to do. And at the end of the day, instead of me working for IMG called me and said, "We want to work for you." And so that's the message I would give to anybody who wants to do this business, is that make sure you're doing it for the right reasons and make sure you're following your heart. Because if you're not, it's very easy to get caught up in the hot take clickbait BS that's out there now. And that's not anything I wanted to be a part of. And so for me, walking away from that radio show because it wasn't what I wanted to do sort of went in line with everything that I had done in my entire career, including saying no to this. I mean, I still have the IMG business card. It's amazing. New York, Rome, Rio, Paris, Stade, like LA. Like
what is Stade?
Exactly. GSTAAD. It's a city in Switzerland. Like, it was the most amazing business card I've ever seen in my life, but it just wasn't for me. It wasn't for me at the time. So I would tell everybody in this business, make sure you're doing this for the right reasons and doing it for the reasons you want to do it.
And that was words from the wise, Trey. Like, that was beautifully well said. Great story. And I kind of, to carry on with that, what is like you were at ESPN for a long time, worked with some great people. who was like not a mentor, but somebody who you like appreciated the most, was just your favorite person to be around in that environment?
Well, there's a couple ways to answer that. First of all, the thing about ESPN is it's not that way now, but at that time, it was so big that you really only hung out with the people that you worked with.
Okay.
Like there are morning shows, there are afternoon shows, there are night shows. And I started doing overnight shows with Kenny Mayne, and that was awesome. And we did that for 2 years, and then we did the 6 o'clock Sports Center for a couple of years. And actually, Kenny texted me today, and we were talking about something completely non-related to sports, which I will not share, but we were just having a good time. Yeah. So the point is, when you're in that situation, you find yourself sort of gravitating to the people you work with. And for me, the most fun I had at ESPN for 15 years was working on NFL Live and doing the golf, the US Open and the British Open. But like to this day, guys I'm still in touch with, Mark Schlereth, Darren Woodson, Jeff Saturday, Tim Hasselbeck, Damian Woody, Ryan Clark, the guys, Teddy Bruschi, the guys that I did NFL Live with all those years. And those are still my best friends. They're still all my guys. They're still the guys I hang out with, still the guys I talk to. And that's the fun part for me. The other part of that situation, we talk about mentors, is that there was a local guy in New York, a guy named Warner Wolf, who I loved as a kid growing up. I thought it was really cool and fun. And then when I worked in St. Louis, Bob Costas at that time was the preeminent sportscaster. And, he worked at NBC, but he got his job locally in St. Louis. So Bob was a mentor. And then Chris Berman, for sure, was a mentor for me. Yeah. And one of my first days at ESPN, I ran into Boomer. He's in the men's room. And I said, Chris, I don't know if you remember me, but I ran into you at Busch Stadium in St. Louis in the press box. And he goes, oh, yeah, you were the cheddar smoky guy. Now, what's a cheddar smoky? It's basically a hot dog shoved with cheddar cheese. And Boomer was in there calling the game. And I said, Boom, you got to try the cheddar smokies. They're really good here. And like one of my third days at ESPN, boom, I ran into him in the men's room. And he was like, you're the cheddar smoky guy. And I was like, the fact that he remembered that, I thought was great. And, Boomer and I still get together every year. He has a place in Hawaii. I have a place in Hawaii. We go out there and play golf together. And we tell the cheddar smoky story every time. So it's fun and it's great. And so those were the guys that were mentors to me. But the guys that I was in the trenches with, for lack of a better term, all those years. Those are the guys that are still my guys, and I text them all the time. And I just texted Damian the other day about some take he had about Jaden Daniels, and I was like, "Yo, bro, I think you're right on this." And it's nice to know that those relationships still exist well beyond either me or somebody else, but like Mark Schlereth, who now works at Fox, working together, and we're just still friends.
Well, Trey, the playoffs are, although the Lions aren't in it, you have an NFC Championship game, you have the AFC Championship game. What's your take? The winners in your Super Bowl matchup and winner of the Super Bowl. Which way are you leaning?
Well, I guess we'll start here. The Chiefs are in their 7th straight AFC Championship game.
Crazy.
Patrick Mahomes, at the age of 29, has 4 more playoff wins than Tom Brady had at 29. He has 1 more Super Bowl appearance than Tom Brady had at 29. He has 2 more regular season MVPs than Tom Brady had at 29. And he has the same number of Super Bowl wins as Tom Brady did at 29. Can the Bills beat them? Absolutely. I firmly believe they can. But until the Chiefs are dead and buried, there's no chance I'm picking against the Chiefs. They're meant for this. I feel like their entire season has been like a kid playing with their food. Just, this is nice, whatever. Ooh, look at the airplane, put it in, because they're just, they want to get to this moment.
Yeah.
And they're one of 4 teams that has ever had a chance to even make it to a conference championship game with a chance of a three-peat. And only one other team has been a home game and a chance to three-peat. And that was the 49ers, who lost to the Giants on their way to Super Bowl 25. 15-13. Matt Barkick 5 field goals in that game. There wasn't an offensive touchdown or a touchdown for the Giants, and they still won that game. I think the Chiefs are going to get there. And I think all this talk about the penalties and, all this, the refs want them to be there. The NFL wants them to be there. That is not good for the Bills. Like that is just fuel for the fire for a team that is ready to do the unthinkable. Now, if the Bills win, it would not surprise me in any way, shape, or form. But I think the Chiefs are going to get there. And I do believe that the Eagles are the better team than the Commanders. So I think America and Detroit specifically is pulling for a Bills-Commanders game.
Yes,
for sure.
I think in all likelihood, the reality is it's a rematch of Super Bowl 57 between the Eagles and the Chiefs.
Wow. I'm on the Commanders Bills. That's what I'm rooting for this weekend.
Of course you are.
And I'm a big Trey. I'm a big Josh Allen fan. I've been a Josh Allen advocate at the beginning
He's
of the
amazing.
year.
He's wonderful. He's a
He's
fantastic
unbelievable.
quarterback. The problem is, I was doing a radio interview in Kansas City today, and they're like, "What's the biggest advantage the Chiefs have?" And I'm like, "Because they know how to do this.
right.
They know what matters." And the Bills, still as good as they are and as wonderful as they've been, they don't know they can do this yet. They don't know. They don't know. The Chiefs know it. Like, I want to read a stat. Do you guys mind if I read you something?
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
This is one of my favorite things in the world about why I think Patrick Mahomes is the outlier of outliers. And I want to be clear, this was done before this year. And I think the Commanders game against the Bucs might have skewed this a little bit, but not enough for it to matter. Here we go. Since 2001, there have been 125 drives in the NFL's postseason where it was at least the fourth quarter, and there was under a minute to play, and the team on offense trailed by 7 points or fewer at the start. These are your standard clutch moments for a football team, the do-or-die drives that win and lose critical games. Out of those 125 drives, only 40% of the time did the team on offense pull off the magic trick to get the points they needed. In other words, a touchdown or a field goal to either win the game or tie the game and send it to overtime.
Yep.
Some of these quarterbacks are really good at it, such as Tom Brady, who was 5 for 11 in those situations in the postseason, 46%. Or Drew Brees, who was 3 for 6 in his playoff career, 50%. Only one player is perfect, and that's Patrick Mahomes, who is 7 for 7 in those situations.
That's ridiculous.
So if you're asking me to pick against Patrick Mahomes, I would say to you, what on earth are you smoking? Okay? And again, to Josh Allen's credit, he had a lead in that situation 3 years ago with 13 seconds to play. 13 seconds. And the Bills fucked it up by kicking off into the end zone. If they had squibbed it, they probably win the game. But you gave Mahomes, with the timeout, 13 seconds left, and he frickin' stabbed you in the heart. And I'll just go back to last year's Super Bowl. The Chiefs had exactly one touchdown drive in that game. The only other touchdown in that game they had was off the muffed punt at the 13-yard line, and they threw a touchdown pass on one play to Marquez Valdez-Scantling. The only touchdown drive the Chiefs had in that game was in overtime, when they needed a touchdown to win the game. That's who he is. If you give him the chance. Now, he lost Super Bowl 55 when they lost 31-9 because it was a blowout. If you give Mahomes the chance, he will break your heart. Emmanuel Sanders was on a podcast recently, and he said, "Do you know how many times Patrick Mahomes has made me cry? I'm a grown man. He's made me cry too many times." The playoff game with 13 seconds left, the Super Bowl when he was with the 49ers. Like, this guy kills me every time. And the whole thing about the refs is a joke. It's chief derangement syndrome. There was a phantom face mask in the Niners freaking Commanders game that didn't exist. Yep. NFL refs are just bad. They're bad. If you give this guy the opportunity, he will destroy you. And I'm betting on the Chiefs until they are dead, not 6 feet under. They're 20 feet under. That's when I'll give up on the Chiefs.
Yeah,
I might be the dumbest guy in the world because I know I'm going to bet on the Bills this week. I'm just,
good for you.
At least I know I'm dumb though. So I'll
nothing would make me happier than to see Josh Allen and the Bills Mafia finally get to a Super Bowl.
That would be unbelievable.
I grew up a Cowboys fan, so I was there for all that heartache. Okay, I took my dad to Super Bowl 27, 52-17. Took my dad to Super Bowl 28, 30-13, when they were down 13-6 at the half, and they shut them out in the second half. I get it. I understand. But if you're betting against the Grim Reaper, good luck.
Yeah.
I'm gonna need all the luck. I want to ask you this, Trey. Just kind of in Detroit here, the whole narrative, obviously, with Dan Campbell is this whole, the very aggressive football, 4th downs, going for it, fake punts, just all of that sort of things. I want to get your kind of take on that. And like, do you think a coach like that can go out and win a Super Bowl? Obviously, like there's like up 17 and still being aggressive last year in the NFC Championship game. And then you saw like this year in the Bills game, the onside kick when you still have a chance to win it and get a stop, and he goes onside kick. What are your thoughts on that? Like, can a team like Dan Campbell led win a Super Bowl and kind of get to the end like that and approaching it that way?
I think he can, but I think he has to learn from his mistakes. The most, like, I hate it, for example, when teams say, well, that's who we are. That's what we do. No, the most important thing you need to do is what's the best way to win a fucking football game? Like, I really hate that when people say, well, that's who we are. We're going to be who we are. No. The best coaches are adaptable. The best coaches are the ones that figure out what is necessary in the moment. And you brought up the NFC Championship game, right? They were up 17 points at the half. And what did they do right before the half last year in that game? They didn't get the touchdown. What did they do? They kicked the field goal because that was the more prudent action. It was the more prudent response. And then after the 49ers had scored, I really believe the smartest thing that Dan Campbell could have done after that first drive in the third quarter was to kick the field goal and to go back up by 17 points and say to his team, guys, they scored, but you know what? We played half of the third quarter, and guess what? We're still up by 17. We're good. We're going to be fine. And I agree with you. The onside kick against the Bills, I think part of that was because he knew how decimated they were by injuries. It was still a panic move to me, much in the same way DeMeco Ryans in the divisional game against the Chiefs. It's 4th and 10. There's 10 minutes to play in the game, and you're going for it? What the hell are you doing? Your defense has been playing great in this game. And not only that, but in that situation, not only did they go for it, but they were so late in going for it that they had to run a play out there, and they barely got it off before the play clock ran out. You had timeouts. If you're so goddamn concerned that you need to get this 4th and 10, use the timeout to settle your team down and make sure you get everybody on the right page. That was a coaching flaw by DeMeco Ryans. And I love Dan Campbell, and I believe you can win that way, but you have to adapt to the moment. And the thing that bothers me most about Dan is he adapted to the moment at the end of the first half when he knew it was the most prudent thing to do. But in the second half, he decided to screw it. I'm going to go back to this. Like, the best example I can give you is Super Bowl 51. The Falcons are up 28-3, and the Patriots are coming back. They kick a field goal to make it 28-6. Another field goal to make it 28-9. Kick another field goal to make it 28-12. Well, what does that 28-12 do? It keeps them within 2 scores of the game. And then they get the one play they needed, the Dante Hightower strip sack on 3rd and 1, and boom, touchdown, 2-point conversion. They get a couple of sacks against the Falcons to push them out of field goal range, touchdown, 2-point conversion. Stay in the game. Stay in the game as long as you can. And that's the most important thing. I love Dan Campbell. I think he's great. I think he's going to be awesome for the Lions for a lot of years. He needs to learn to adapt to the moment. He needs to learn. The best coaches in the NFL do not say, this is who we are, this is what we do. The best coaches say, what do I need to do to win the game or keep us in the game in this moment? And that's something that I think Dan Campbell has still yet to learn. The game against the Packers, Thursday night, 4th and whatever. They decided to go for it to run up the clock, and what happened?
Yeah.
Jared Goff got stepped on. They are very lucky. They are very lucky that play still went the way it did. It could have gone the other way, and it could have been a frickin' disaster. And yet the very next week, he did it again. You need to learn from these moments and adapt who you are based on the moment and the situation in the game. That's the only thing that matters.
Yeah. I mean, you can see, you look at McVay, he adapts regardless of who he's going up against. They have the personnel. Somehow he puts it together and puts together a great game plan, it seems, regardless of who's the personnel for him. But another thing the Rams do is they draft very well. The Detroit Lions draft very well. There's the offseason for both of these teams. When you look at this draft board right now, who do you think should be the number one player taken? Because it's a weak quarterback class by most measures, with Cam Ward and Shadur Sanders being the top two. But when you look at that number one spot, who, in your opinion, should be the first guy taken off the board in this year's draft?
All right, I'm gonna make a very unpopular opinion right now. You ready?
Yeah.
We're ready.
I don't fucking care. I got a Super Bowl to worry about. I got Conference Championship Sunday to worry about. Okay, that's way more important to me right now.
Very
than whether
fair.
it's going to be Shadur Sanders or Cam Ward. I do not freaking care. I'll care about that when the season's over. All right? I'm just being honest with you.
Yeah.
Hey, very
I
fair,
love
Trey.
that.
Very fair.
We do these way too early mock drafts. I'm like, yes, it's way too fucking early. Okay? Like I benefit. My career benefited from the draft industrial complex. 100%. I get that. I could not care less about who the number one pick of the draft is going to be right now. I do not care. When the game is over and Super Bowl 59 is in the books, I promise you I will care. I do not care. I do not care. There are more important things for me to invest my time in right now than whoever's going to be the number one pick in the draft. Okay? Like, and we do this all the time. Let's just go through the 2021 draft, right? Number one overall pick, Trevor Lawrence. And everybody was convinced he is absolutely, by far, the best pick available. Any team that needed a quarterback, you have to take Trevor Lawrence. By no measurable standard has he lived up to that billing. He hasn't. Okay? Zach Wilson was the second overall pick of the 2021 draft. He's now backing up Bo Nix in Denver. Okay? Trey Lance. The Niners gave up 3 first-round picks to draft Trey Lance. He's now the emergency backup quarterback in Dallas. Who knows what his future is? Justin Fields. Justin Fields is now potentially a free agent. He may or may not be retained by the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Mac Jones is now backing up Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. I don't give a shit. I don't want to hear about this because it doesn't matter, and you get it wrong 60% of the time. So
True.
I love the draft. It's great theater. It's great drama. It's great reality television. It was great for my career. But if we're being honest about it, it's just another reason to grab your attention. And right now, it doesn't mean shit.
Hey, give me a Panay Sewell. I want a Panay Sewell. That's what I want.
Well, look, okay. I'll give you this. I really thought the Bengals should have drafted Panay Sewell instead of Jamar Chase. And I was wrong. I'm 100% wrong about that. Jamar Chase absolutely was the right pick for the Bengals to take. But I was convinced that if you don't protect Joe Burrow, it doesn't matter who he's throwing to. And Joe has proved all of that to be wrong. Al Michaels said it best years ago. Nobody knows anything. Everybody can have an opinion. You can have a thought about what might or might not be true. You cannot grade a draft until 3 or 4 years after. Like, for example, even this year, Caleb Williams versus Jaden Daniels. Clearly, Jaden Daniels was the right pick. Clearly. Do we know that for sure? We know that for sure. Do we know that for sure? We know that Jaden Daniels had a great offensive rookie year. Back it up. Do it again. Look at C.J. Stroud last year. Oh, my God. C.J. Stroud, is he the next greatest thing? And I think he's going to be a good quarterback. But you can safely say his second season was way worse than his rookie season. I'm a big believer in the long game. You ever watch the movie Charlie Wilson's War? You ever seen that movie?
I never have. No.
I don't think I have, Trey.
Watch it. Tom Hanks, Philip Seymour Hoffman. It's about a congressman who led the war against Afghanistan. Long story. The bottom line is there's a scene in that movie where Philip Seymour Hoffman says, as the Zen philosopher says, we'll see. We'll see. I have no idea what's going to happen. C.J. Stroud may end up being the greatest thing of all time, or he may end up being just another really good quarterback that doesn't really have all the magic he had his rookie year. Nobody knows anything. We'll see. I play the long game. That's why I know when I talk about Patrick Mahomes, I'm good. 7 straight AFC Championship game appearances. Second longest only to Tom Brady. More playoff wins than Tom Brady at this point in his career. More Super Bowl appearances than Tom Brady in his career. I've seen it over an extended dance mix version of time. That's the only thing that matters to me.
Hey, just try real quick, because there's a big debate that goes on this show pretty much every night we air. If you had to pick one, again, to your standard of long-term success, Jaden Williams or Caleb Williams, or Jaden Daniels or Caleb Williams, which one you taking?
I can't make. I can't listen. I could give you an opinion, but it's like a duck's fart. It's just in the wind. It goes away. It doesn't matter. But the point I'm making is it doesn't matter, right? Like, it doesn't matter. Sure, I could have a hot take and say this is going to be whatever, but it doesn't matter because there's not enough data in. There's not enough data. Data should be the only thing that matters. That should be the only thing that matters. And people are so interested in your opinion as opposed to the actual facts. That's the problem with this entire industry at this point. Jaden has been great, and I've known Jaden forever because, true story, full disclosure, Herm Edwards is one of my best friends in the world. And I know that when Herm had Jaden at Arizona State, he was telling me, like, you won't believe this kid. He's unbelievable. Like, the things this kid can do are amazing. They're fascinating. And it's great. And I'm excited about that. But 5 years, like, RG3 was the greatest thing in the world in 2012. Yet Kirk Cousins, who was taken in the 4th round by the same team in 2012, is still playing. And RG3's been out of football for 3 years. And now he's become one of these ridiculous, obnoxious hot takers just for attention. Okay. And RG3 was the rookie of the year and everybody loved him. There's a great picture of him with Morgan Freeman. And isn't this great? Yeah, but it didn't last for a variety of reasons. So I cannot tell you right now whether or not Jaden Daniels or Caleb. I mean, I could, but I'd just be feeding you bullshit. Right? And I'm not going to feed you bullshit. I'm not going to do that.
Fair. That's fair.
I do appreciate that.
Plays out. I want to see how it plays out before I can make a discerning investment about that. I knew Patrick Mahomes was going to be great because he threw for 50 fucking touchdown passes his first year. The list of quarterbacks that have thrown for 50 touchdown passes in their career. Peyton Manning in 2013, 13 years into his career. Tom Brady in 2007, 8 years into his career. This guy, the first year he was a starter, he threw 50 touchdown passes. The guy's the outlier of all outliers. So I couldn't even begin to tell you who's going to be better in the long run, Jaden Daniels or Caleb Williams. All I know is that Jaden Daniels off to a better start. That's the best answer I can give you.
Hey, that's a great answer. I'd love to hear that. Hey, I want to ask you, Trey. I know you're a big golfer. How's the golf game? What's the handicap look like? We go to the Rocket Mortgage Classic and cover that here every single year at the Detroit Country Club. Great tournament. How's your golf game? What's the handicap?
My handicap is a 9, which is the worst because it means you think you should be better than you are. I'd rather, I really lowered my handicap over the last 5 or 6 years from like an 18 to a 9. And a 9 is the worst because half the time you're doing exactly what you want. And the other half the time, it's like I'm swinging a snow shovel. What the hell is that? And that's the worst. So, I'm stuck sort of here. Normally this time of year, I'm either in California or Maui for the winter because winter is not a thing that I care about in any way, shape, or form anymore.
Just casual spots.
Yeah, but with the job at DraftKings, I had to be here this year, and it's sucked. I haven't swung a club in 6 weeks, so I'm looking forward to getting to the Super Bowl, maybe playing a few rounds in New Orleans, and then obviously playing after that. So I would tell you that I believe my game is okay, but I won't know until I get out there. And that's the beauty of golf. Like, yeah, the thing about golf, which I love, is that there's nothing that you can store up. Like if you want to work out and lift, you can store endurance. You can store all this kind of stuff. If you're not playing, you can't store it. It's either going to be there when you show up or it's not. And it's freaking frustrating, man. Like outside of trying to hit major league pitching, I firmly believe, and I will die on this hill, and Golick and I had an argument about this for years on the air. The hardest thing to do is to hit a golf ball where you want to hit it on a consistent basis.
Yeah. I agree. It's tough. I haven't figured it out. I haven't even came close to figuring it out. I'm far from a 9 handicap. So I respect that.
Mean, Trey, I'm just trying to. You said I'm waiting for it to show up. All right, I'm shooting low hundreds. All right, I just want to get to a 99 one day. It'll come.
What's your best round? What's your best round ever?
Oh, you're gonna laugh at this. Okay, I went out with the fellas here. All right, we all went out. We golfed. We filmed some of it, and I actually the final hole, I needed a par to get 99. I had a 3-foot putt to get 99.
Oh, no.
It's on video too.
It's on. Hey, Trey, one of the worst moments, because in Michigan, obviously it's seasonal. So it was right before, obviously, winter came. My last opportunity, whiffed a 3-foot putt.
No, you whiffed? Like you missed the putt?
Oh, by a mile. It was a 3-foot.
Wait. You didn't even, the blade didn't even make contact?
So, I made contact.
Okay.
It went
the
to
putt.
the left. Listen, Trey, I wish I was Mahomes, perfect in crunch time. I'm not. Okay. This is why I'm talking on a microphone. I'll just say that. I'll get 99 this summer, though. I'll get 99 this summer. That's my goal.
Well, my best round ever was a 73.
Oh, great.
Whoa.
Yeah, man. It was at the Bay Course at Kapalua. And I'll never forget this. I wasn't even thinking about it. I was just playing really well. And I realized I was 1 under through 11 holes. And I texted my wife and I said, holy shit, I'm 1 under through 11 holes. And her response was the greatest. She's like, the fuck are you doing? Why are you texting me? Shut up. Go finish the round. And like I bogeyed the next 4 holes. I brought it back with a couple of birdies, but she was absolutely right. She's like, why are you talking about this? What the fuck is your problem?
You jinx it. It's a real thing.
You have to stay in the moment. You have to stay in the moment in that game where it will bite you in the ass faster than anything. Well,
Trey, we appreciate you. I mean, you're authentic. You're great. You're a legend. Hopefully, hey, we got to get you back on at some point to join the fellas here. It was a great time today. We appreciate you. Thank you,
guys. It's been great, and I appreciate it. And thank you so much for having me on. Just do this. Here's what I would say. I have no idea. What are you guys all 26, 27? How old are you?
Yeah, mid-20s.
Around there, mid-20s.
Mid-20s. All right, and this is your side hustle, right?
Yep. Hopefully one day full time.
Trying to make it the full time.
Here's the advice I would give you along those lines. Do it as long as it makes you happy. But don't let anybody else ever tell you when it's time to quit. Okay? The world will tell you no 1,000,000 times. There's 1,000,000 people will say you can't do it, you shouldn't do it, there's no reason for you to do it, you suck at this, blah, blah, blah. Do it until it doesn't make you happy anymore. Don't let anybody else tell you when the journey is over. Let you decide when the journey is over. Because like for me, I could have easily sold out and taken the corporate job at IMG, and I probably would have been very happy. And I probably would have made a lot of money earlier and faster than I made it through broadcasting. But I would have hated it and regretted it for the rest of my life. The biggest thing I can tell you is failure will not kill you. Regret will. Don't have regrets. Shoot or shoot. Take your shot. And if you fail, guess what? At least you stepped up to the plate. At least you took your swings. If you don't take your swings, those are the people that are living in mental institutions and saying, I can't believe I never took my shot. So I'm proud of you guys for shooting your shot. Whether it works out or not, who the fuck cares? Shoot or shoot. Take it and see what happens.
There you go. Trey Wingo.
What a
time. We appreciate you, Trey. We'll talk to you.
You got it, guys. Anytime.
There you go. Trey Wingo joining the program, giving the boys just the honestly, just the presence, man.
That was unbelievable. Yeah.
I'm fired up. I'm ready to be great. I'm ready to take everything over now. Okay, that's what Trey Wingo does. He's just dude. Ready to go. Ready to go. And you know
words from the wise at the end.
Dude,
the whole conversation, the stories, all of that, just like, let's go, boys. You know,
come on,
let's take this thing to the next level.
I think we got some donations too during that, Jeff.
Let me get through these and make sure we give a shout out to good guys. Thank you for the $5. Since we need Rex Ryan, that's who Booner brought up actually a couple days ago.
Baby.
Jody, thank you for the $10. She says, what do you guys think about players are feeling after losing all these coaches? Also, have you guys heard the rumor that Goff is feeling very ill all night into the next day before the game? Just curious. So the second part, we'll ask the doc because he's joining us in a minute here.
I've not heard that.
In the first part, I mean, we would all agree it blows. Like Amon Ra's podcast. If you haven't watched that, check that out. You'll see how he feels about it. And then Coach Walk, member, for 8 months.
No.
He says that was awesome. Appreciate you, Coach. Well, we got back-to-back guests. We got the man. It's Wednesday, and he was kind of Doc's like Doc's like big bro. I text him. He says, "You know what? You guys are crushing it. Keep crushing it with Trey Wingo." He's joining the program. We're going to get to catch up with the Doc. As always, brought to you guys by BetUS. Please welcome to the show the publisher of Detroit Lions on Sports Illustrated, John Maakaron. John, what's going on, my man?
Doc.
Fellas, that was enjoyable, but real fast. Xavier, Streams, buddy, fuck you guys. Come on. I'm sitting there enjoying the interview with your grandpa, and it was great. And listening to all the great stories. No, I kid. Trey Wingo is great. He's one of the reasons why guys like me go into it. He said it. You try to do stuff that you find enjoyable. You could listen to that guy do his thing for an hour, but I got to tell him, stop blowing up the secrets. I don't watch any games either. I just message Joy Taylor and tell her, hey, what should I say? What kind of hot take should I have today? I don't want him telling all the secrets. I don't watch any football either. But no, I'll say this. There is a unique debate that does happen between guys like him and people that do give their opinions. And listening to that, look, there's just, if you ask someone a question and they just tell you, well, I want to wait and see. Well, that's no fun. That's not what water cooler is. That's not why I started the podcast. I wanted to talk shit with the fellas. So if you ask me, I think the number one pick in the draft is going to be a debate between Cam Ward and Deion Sanders' son and Shedeur Sanders. So I think it's going to be fun as the draft starts. I've turned my attention to the draft. I read 50 mock drafts already, and you asked the question that's very interesting as well. Jaden Daniels will definitely outshine Caleb Williams because you see the poise right away. He's in the right system. I'm very happy that Caleb got Ben Johnson. It's going to help his career. But if you ask me, Jaden Daniels is the fucking truth. And that's why we do this, is that you don't say, in my opinion, humbly, let's wait and see. You ask a question, you get a direct answer, and let the people debate. But there's that fine debate between people that want to say wait and see and people that want to give opinions. And it'll be a tried and true debate for all times. But you ask the Doc a question, I'll give you a direct answer, and I don't give a fuck what anybody says.
Oh, my. Well, what a start to the Doc Wednesdays. Hey, Trey Wingo, we love you, Trey. All right, the Doc here, that's his opinion of everything. That's the Doc. That's our good friend. That's our guy. Doc, let me ask you, I'll start it off. What a fucking week, man. I know you've been grinding because within 48 hours of the Lions losing, which we talked to you that night, and the Doc joined the boys at 2 a.m. Doc was still at Ford Field at 2 a.m. talking to the fellas. You get home, you probably don't get to bed till the sun rises. And then within 48 hours, Ben Johnson's gone. Hank Fraley's rumored to go. Tara Williams is gone. AG's gone. Like, what the fuck, Doc? I mean, we'll start with the game. We've had a couple days. I know the boys will probably ask about the coaches, but just the game. A couple days removed. What's going on in the Doc's head? A couple days removed.
No, it's true, guys. And just real fast, listen, we're kid. I love Trey Wingo. I listen to him on the radio. I listen to him do his thing on ESPN. I'm a big fan of everybody, and it's fun. That's why we do this. We get to talk shit with the boys, and I really love talking shit to people at all times. It's the funnest. It's the funnest part to do this, is to talk shit and to listen to the comments in the chat are effing hilarious. I still don't have my emotes from you guys, so that will piss me off.
Working on it.
I trust you're working on it, but let's get that moving. But you know what the feeling I have? It's truly bipolar. Like I put videos out that were sad. I put videos out that were angry. I have reasons for hope. I have reasons to panic. It's just one of those deals where I didn't think we'd be having this talk on this Wednesday about a football team that lost to the Commanders. But more frustrating, the Lions didn't play Lions football. They made far too many mistakes. It was one of those deals where you went to that football game, everybody was confident. I was confident. I felt like that if the Lions played their brand of football, they were going to win. And it was reminiscent of old times where the Lions shot themselves in the foot, made a lot of mistakes. And you left that game going, man, that's the lasting image of 24 is 5 turnovers, Goff not playing well, Dan Campbell getting criticized for mistakes that were made, 12 men on the field. That was reminiscent of some of the shit that you used to see 10 years ago. Now, we thought that in the last 2-3 years, we turned the page, but a lot of factors led into that. And now we have to sift through the ramifications of a football team that fell short. It stinks. I'm all over the place with my emotions because it does lend to the questions about the team's Super Bowl window. You have to kind of use your head and your heart to debate what's going on with this football team. But, there's a lot of reasons for hope, but there's a lot of reasons to be pissed off that the last 2 years, opportunities that they potentially had to win Super Bowls didn't happen.
Yeah, Doc, I do want to ask you the question. Obviously, with all the news of the Aaron Glenn going to the Jets, Ben Johnson to Chicago, obviously the news pops up. Hey, who's going to be replacing them? Who's the new OC in Detroit? Who's going to be the new DC? And one thing too that we keep seeing, and we talked about it before earlier in the show, is Hank Fraley. And kind of the questions going on with him, whether he's staying in Detroit, going to Seattle, going to Chicago. What are your thoughts on kind of the replacement for these guys? And a guy, especially second part to that question, a guy like Hank Fraley, like where does he end up?
Yeah. Now, look, first and foremost, we've talked about it here. It was pretty much expected Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn were going to be coveted. They got their deals. They moved on. And we'll talk about, do I think that it was distracting or all of that kind of talk? They're gone. And so it's just that fast. First and foremost, credit to the Lions, because I said this earlier on a radio interview. I'd never in a million years would think that the NFL world would covet coaches from the Lions. That's wild to think about, that people were making overtures to Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. Credit to Dan Campbell for developing and cultivating coaches. Now you get a couple compensatory picks in 25 and 26 in the third round for Aaron Glenn, leaving to the New York Jets. So that helps the cause for the Detroit Lions. And you recognize now there's going to be a void. There's going to be a void, and there's no guarantee that who Dan hires is going to come in and right away have this thing up and running. It may take time, but I'm confident. I do think that clearly Dan knew that Ben and Aaron were on this track. Dan revealed it. He does meetings. He cultivated a meeting room that taught them how to think through the game. They talk ball all the time. So he knows. And I think that the plan is probably has been in place, but he's going to do a thorough search. And I do expect that Dan Campbell will make the wisest choice given time. It's not going to happen fast. Now, Hank Fraley's unique because I do think that there's some leverage going on in regards to him seeking opportunities with the Seahawks, potentially to help himself with here in Detroit. Now, do you make him the offensive coordinator? Probably not. I do think that if he gets a reasonable offer, now you're hearing a little bit of conflicted reports out of Seattle. Maybe they want to have him split, make him the run game coordinator and somebody else a play caller because he doesn't have that experience. I wonder, will he take an opportunity to leave? I do think the opportunity is better here in Detroit with the offensive line that you have here, but does he want upward mobility? Because I do think that the leaders in the clubhouse here for Detroit, I think there's two guys ahead of him. And I go back and forth. I think Scotty Montgomery is a more well-rounded coach, can relate to Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery and the offensive line. So to me, I would vote, if you ask the doc, for Scotty Montgomery and then working closely with Dan Campbell to play call. I think that's fine. Tanner Engstrand, I think, would do the job as well. The passing game coordinator, I think that he's more aligned with Jared Goff. So Jared Goff's going to have input. So I do think it's going to come down on the offensive side to either Tanner Engstrand or Scotty Montgomery. I think that's pretty reasonable to keep the terminology the same. Internal options, no problem. Defensively, I think you're going to have that debate back and forth. I think Kelvin Shepard has been groomed by Aaron Glenn to take over the job. But I do think that there's names out there that are better with more experience. And if you're Dan Campbell, is it wise to go with two internal options, two first-time coordinators at the NFL level? I don't think you do that. I think you look to Dennis Allen, you make the call, you say, hey, are you interested? And then you make the triple call and you offer the dollars to Robert Saleh. And again, this message has been biased and will always.
That's your guy, Doc. That's your guy.
Robert Saleh is my guy. I would love it. It would be Ego Habibi Fest. It would have you'd see the doc. I would literally pull up to his presser with some hummus and some beef bread and some chicken shawarma and maybe the fun times we would have there. It would be great to have two Lebanese guys going toe to toe, talking defense, battling it out. But in the end, too, when you look at his tape, aggression. I think the problem would be solved with the inability to get sacks. I think Aiden Hutchinson would have 20 sacks. You'd find the edge rusher on the opposite side. And I think Robert Saleh would develop Tyrion Arnold to get as close as possible to be a great individual. I think Saleh's more right now ready to be a DC than he is a head coach because he never figured out the offense, and you got to be a two-way. You can't just run one side of the ball. And you know, when you have a quarterback that you take number 2 and it's a flop, that's a real bad stain on your head coaching record. But defensive coordinator, I think Saleh could do it. So to me, I think you go external, and Allen or Saleh hopefully gets an opportunity, but I think it might land on Dennis Allen. You know, Saleh, maybe with the Jaguars, you don't wish that on him. That's nasty. The way they operate is ass backwards. The way they operate their business is terrible, but he does have a big offer. You hear out there reports that he's got a big fat offer with the 49ers. So I just don't think that Habibi time happens in Allen Park. It would be effing amazing if it did. I would be very happy, and I'd have to put aside my bias at times, but it would be great to have. But I think that, you know, the question marks are real. What's going to happen when you make these 2 changes?
And Doc, when we saw Ben Johnson speak at his press conference today, like he did give Dan his flowers. He took a little shot at Matt LaFleur. So it was very interesting to see Ben Johnson in that light. What ultimately do you think it happens with Ben, at least in the first 2 years? Like, do you think he's going to turn Chicago around instantly? Do you think he's going to flop? Do you think he's going to turn around and do what McVay did in LA? What do you think is going to come now that Ben Johnson has solidified himself with Caleb Williams in Chicago, of all fucking places?
Yeah, it was, you know, the good thing is Sports Illustrated was on it. Albert Breer was one of the first people to talk about Ben Johnson having an interest. Remember, he did a radio interview in Chicago and kind of expressed that he had the interest last year. People were kind of debating. I thought he might end up with Vegas because of Tom Brady. You know that Tom Brady would put together a team over time that would be sustainable. But I think that, you know, when you give it deeper thought, it's actually pretty effing smart of Ben Johnson to stay in the division. He's already done the prep work on all the teams. It's effing smart and genius. You have a quarterback there. You have the weapons there. You have receivers in the mold of Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamison Williams. Now, the biggest question mark is going to be his defense. How is he going to align a defense, put that together? Because that's most important. I do think Ben Johnson will succeed. That's why I'm pissed. I think that's why Lions fans are pissed, is that he's staying in the division. He's going to go toe-to-toe with Dan Campbell. But he's got the ultimate, you know, chutzpah. I respect that a lot. He's got big, huge, you know, he's taking the risk to battle it out with his mentor, and you got to respect that. But to me, the people that are all virtuous and are like, I can't believe people are upset. The moment he cut ties with the Lions, he's dead to me. I hope he flops. I will celebrate when he gets fired in 5 years. I hope that Dan Campbell rubs it in the dirt. I hope Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, when it's simple. It's out of respect. You don't, you know, go out there and, you know, dab it up with your opponents. He left. He took the money and he left. Good for him. I'm happy that he got paid. He's worth every penny. But in my opinion, it's Detroit or bust. You'll never see me with an NY hat on the air. You'll never see me wearing anything but Detroit gear. So for all the Lions fans, good on you. That's what you're supposed to be. And everybody's like, I can't believe you guys would react that way to Ben Johnson. Well, in the end, it's the same way. And hopefully you recognize my pattern here. Ben Johnson didn't win shit in Detroit. I don't see no rings. I don't see no ultimate prize. He didn't win jack shit. He didn't win jack shit in Detroit. So see you later, alligator. I hope you do your thing. Will he be successful right away? I think he's going to have the team better than they were in 2024. I do think the offense will perform better. I think Caleb Williams will develop. But in the end, I still think the Lions are the class of the division, and they still got Dan Campbell with more experience and Brad Holmes. And we still have to evaluate how Ben Johnson is going to run a game at the biggest moment. But for Lions fans, I'm proud of you. Who gives a shit about Ben Johnson? I hope he flops.
And you know what, Doc?
Jeff didn't like that.
Yeah, well, I don't mind people rooting against him because he's with the Bears. I just don't like, Doc, people trying to discredit what he did in Detroit. Like, Trey Wingo came on and said the first thing he brought up was, and I get it's more than just Ben, but he was a part of the last 2 seasons. Lions have the best record in the NFL. So,
well, hold on. Okay. Now we understand that he was a great offensive mind. He helped Jared Goff, but let's talk about some of the words here. Let's really uncover some things that are deep that I asked about. 3rd down and 1. Why the fuck are you running a play to Amon-Ra St. Brown that has a chance to be a failure? Multiple times, the aggression that Ben Johnson displayed, you could argue, hurt the team. 3rd down and 1, empty set. What the fuck is that? You would argue that his you're only as good as your last performance, and his last performance was terrible. Why the fuck are you having Jamison Williams throw the football? What the fuck are you doing? You're only down 10 points. You have some momentum. You're moving the football. Jamison Williams throwing the football, that was what you came up with as your trick play. I think, sometimes these coaches, they get a little bit, these offensive minds get a little bit out of whack, and there's always a difference. And Trey said it. Ben Johnson as well. I thought that, yes, razzle dazzle is always fun in the regular season, and the analytics will always show that, hey, being aggressive is worthwhile. But there were a lot of times late in the season, those third down calls were fucking terrible. They were awful. Like 3rd down and 1, and you're running passes that are 5 yards out with a 5-step drop with Jared Goff. And I asked, and you can go back and listen, I asked Dan directly, empty set, 3rd and 1. Why did you not run the football? You have an offensive line. You have 2 running backs that are great. Perfect storm. Well, guess what? I can eliminate any storm. I can take away the clouds. 3rd down and 1, I will call a running play. If you have the intention of going for it on 4th down, then on 4th down, if it gets stuffed, we're going to run again. So in the end, the identity of this football team is to be a little bit gritty. And I think Ben Johnson kind of at times likes the, obviously clearly likes the passing game, but at the certain times you got to pound the rock, and it's not that difficult to run a running play towards the right side behind Mahogany and Sewell. And I thought Ben Johnson came up with his worst offensive game plan. I know they scored a lot of points, but I thought at the critical moments when you needed him the most, wasn't there. And I thought that some of the calls that he made, you could question. And it'll be interesting to see what kind of offense he puts together with Chicago.
Well, let me ask you then. I know it's kind of the offseason already, but we talked about it yesterday. Me, Boone, and Lucas about some guys that the Lions need to bring back. That list. A lot of those guys on that list, Doc, probably don't need to really bring back at all, but key names like a Kevin Zeitler, Carlton Davis, Iffy, Levi. Where are you at with some of those bigger names, bringing them back? What do you think the Lions do with those guys?
Yeah, that's the one next step that we're going to look at Lions on SI2 is, all right, number one, probably target is Carlton Davis. Now, if you're Carlton Davis, do you maybe accept an offer from the Jets? You have familiarity. It's going to be one of those deals where I do think he's a good player, but he's, on average, he's missed 4 games the last couple of years. That's the tough part. You do need him. Amik Robertson makes the decision harder because he can play on the outside. But I think you can never find too many cornerbacks. To me, I think I've said it here. I'm a little bit of an ageist in regards to the offensive line. Zeitler, I would move Mahogany to the right side and look for the replacement for Graham Glasgow in the draft. You hope that Manu can potentially start the process of getting some time. In a reserve role, clearly not going to be a starter, but I do think that, Zeitler was okay, did a good job. Glasgow was a problem. Maybe you keep him, but switch him to the right side if you let him play because you still have him under contract. So there's going to be a lot of decisions that are made that are going to be really important in terms of, hey, do you give JMO and Hutch contracts now? Many people probably are speculating that Hutch will get the deal and JMO will get the 5th-year option. So there's a lot of interesting free agents that are going to be looked at and targeted. Derek Barnes coming back from injury. That's a fascinating situation to look at in regards to what kind of contract, maybe a prove-it deal will come about. So there's going to be some decisions that are going to be made that are going to be very key that we're going to look at over time over the next couple of weeks because, Brad Holmes talks Thursday. We'll get a sense of the future of the organization. And then as that kind of winds down next week for sure, we'll definitely do a deep dive on free agents, what kind of contracts they're going to offer, rankings, stuff like that. I think Vito told me, and it was good talk, tomorrow at Lions on SI, we're going to start with ranking the needs of where the Lions need at certain positions. And I do believe offensive line will be up there as well as some positions along the defensive line. So look for it.
Yeah, Doc, one thing, obviously a big storyline of that loss on Saturday night, the Jared Goff turnovers and all of that offensively. I'll just ask you point blank, straight. I want to know your straight answer on it. Can the Detroit Lions win a Super Bowl with Jared Goff?
Oh, that's a great question. Oh, man. Oh,
You're on the spot, Doc.
That's the money. That's the money question. That's what was activated, right? Awful performance by Jared Goff. And to me now, it's one of those deals where I do think you can win a Super Bowl with Jared Goff. But my heart has always said, I want to win a Super Bowl because Jared Goff did something in the game. Here's what's going to happen now. In a game of a big magnitude, that's always there. That LA Ram type game where he drops. When he fumbled that football on third down, I was like, oh shit, we're getting bad Jared Goff. This is not good. And he was airmailing the football. And look, guys, remember a couple weeks back, we had that fun, lighthearted talk about Brian Flores and what you do to mess around with Goff and how to get Goff off of his game.
Right.
Well, Dan Quinn took it to that level. That hit by Louvu was cheap, but
Oh my God.
smart hit. You rocked Jared Goff, and he wasn't the same. He probably didn't, he passed the concussion protocol, but he wasn't right. He already had a turnover up at that point when he had the hit. But after that, the Dan Quinn's a genius. He used what the Bills did well to pressure Jared Goff and teams like that. And that's what you got to do. You got to make Jared Goff unsettled, uncomfortable. That was the hope with what the Lions were trying to do with Jaden Daniels. It didn't work. And Jared Goff, when you pressure him in certain spots and he's uncomfortable, not in rhythm, not in the best position, that game is possible. And that game probably could happen in the Super Bowl. So that's what's scary. But I do think that he gives you a chance, a better opportunity than others. But to me, Jaden Daniels looks good out there. He's got good talent. He looked more poised. He's got the athletic mobility. I just think the one problem, it's an issue, is Jared Goff is a sitting target. Like it's 1, 2, 3 step drop. If he may evade defenders against a bad team, but in the playoffs, you're getting guys and defensive lines that are going to typically be ranked in the top 10. They're going to have fast, athletic defensive linemen, and they're coming to go after Jared Goff. All the defensive coordinators I talked to a lot of college coaches that have faced Jared Goff, and they all smile when I say, how do you attack Jared Goff? They all smile big, all of them. And it's all the same. They all smile big, and they go, you blitz the fuck out of them. And they all say that you pressure Jared Goff, you make him uncomfortable, and you have a chance to win. And that's what Dan Quinn did.
Was he sick? Was he sick, Doc? Did you hear that? Have you ever heard
I did not hear those whispers. And that day before, I had asked how Jared Goff was on that Friday. I asked Dan Campbell, how did he look in practice? By all accounts, Dan said he was good in practice. I did not hear that he was sick. But in the end, if you're sick, then you got to, make it known and adjust the game plan. But his throws were off. But at the same time, what made him really sick was the Washington Commanders. I would give the credit to the Commanders more than any illness or things like that. Once he got hit, once he felt the helmet to helmet, which probably should have been a penalty by the spirit of the law, I thought that game over. I thought he was rattled, and that was a wrap. And that hit was brutal. That was a shot.
And this is going to come off the fucking left side of the window here, Doc. Just a random question, but it's something that I wanted to ask Trey, but I was going to ask you regardless. When you look at the season that Jahmyr Gibbs had, when you look at Saquon Barkley, when you look at the Chiefs not having success through the air, but on the ground, and finally the Buffalo Bills rushing offense, do you think we're going to start to see kind of a running back renaissance come through the NFL? Because you saw the pass-happy nature, but the teams that are having success are running the football. Do you think that's going to be the new feature instead of throwing the ball going forward?
Look, man, Jahmyr Gibbs running the football to me, and that's the old school nature versus new school. It's great. I love the debate now because you had, to me, it just stunk because the Lions got behind it. I think it only led to Gibbs getting like 14 total carries. And you just wish he kind of got up there to 20, 25, but you were behind. It's not like they went away from him. They got behind. So I do think running the football is integral. But you can see success the way the Lions had it with Ben Johnson is that you establish the run, get the play action, but you kind of needed to call some play action. And unfortunately, the way in which the game went in a manner that I thought didn't play to the Lions' strength. Here's the deal. I thought that they should have started the game with Jahmyr Gibbs. I thought that if you get him involved in the game, and again, that's why it's so sentinel. That 3rd down and 1 call, if you go up 14-3, that the vibe of that game could change. More pressure on Daniels. You play from ahead. You make it so that you play Lions football. That turnover I thought was critical, and that was the key call. 3rd down and 1, you fumble the ball. You just can't have it. And in the end, football games, you're never going to win a football game when your quarterback plays poorly and you turn the football over 5 times to your 0. So the strategy should have been to run the football a little bit more. But here's the problem that I didn't see, over time is that Graham Glasgow just, in regards to his play, did not have his best performance in the postseason. And it ended up being costly. There were some plays there that were that cost the Lions. And you get, when you're 3rd and long or you're not having positions, you're not ahead of the sticks, it ends up being a problem. But it's tough. You got to find those running backs, but it's a passing league, and it's advantageous because the way the game is called to have, it's a quarterback driven league. So when you pay a quarterback $40 million, you don't want to pay him to hand it off, so that's why you realize Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, you got to have that right mix. The Lions kind of always want balance. They've been that way, but I would say that for this game against the Commanders, the offensive line also fell short too. It was just a cavalcade of errors.
And real quick, Doc, just tail end off that because it kind of implies, do you think with Jahmyr Gibbs, we should see more usage from him next year compared to trying to keep it balanced between him and Montgomery so much?
Man, that's great, right? The Lions, we've asked that philosophy question to the coaching staff. We've asked it to Scotty Montgomery. We've asked him and said, hey, like why? And also too, there's a benefit to the running backs in that by having more of a split, you can extend their career, you can keep them fresher longer. But to me, and it's not really nice to say, but I'm more like, hey, you utilize these running backs the first 3-4 years on a rookie deal. You run them until their treads are thin and done, and then you get the next running back. And Jahmyr Gibbs, you invested a nice draft pick in him. I think he showcased. He gained more confidence. I like what he did. I do believe he's a home run threat every time he touches the ball. I would think that, if Scotty Montgomery is the offensive coordinator, I do think you're going to see still kind of that involvement with David Montgomery, but you got to go 60-40 with Jahmyr Gibbs. I just think that he's explosive, and I think that David Montgomery coming back might have hurt this team more than people thought.
Well, Doc, you mentioned earlier you're an opinion guy, so I'm going to throw out an opinion question on you, Doc. Give me your prediction. Who ends up as the Lions OC? Who ends up as the Lions DC? Who will it be, Doc, in your opinion?
Yeah.
Gotta pick one.
No, yeah, I'll give it. And here's the funny part too, real fast, because I want to address a theory here that people will always say. They'll say, "Oh, Doc don't know analytics. Doc don't know. He doesn't focus on." Listen, okay, I understand all the analytics. All right, but you still have to account. Analytics don't account for real time what's going on in the game. All right. You can say, oh my God, the play call that Dan ran on 4th down allowed him to win, 67% of the time. Well, guess what? Your last guest stood in front of the microphone and said, hey, Dan's got to adapt a little bit. And I'm the same way. You know what I mean? All the analytics in the world can, dictate all your decisions. But to me, my opinion is you built an offensive line. You have Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, and you have a tush-push option. You can't get a fucking yard. Something's wrong. I think that in that moment was sentinel. So you can take your analytics and share and tell everybody, well, oh my God, Dan's analytically right this many times. In the end, you lost the game. You were aggressive at the time when you really didn't need to. I think the odds would have been pretty simple at that 3rd down. You score that touchdown, it's a totally different game. Analytics, guys, you can be as nerdy as you can and type all the numbers you want, okay? But in the end, the Lions are not in the postseason, and they're gone. Turnovers, Jared Goff, there's issues. And now you have to worry. The Super Bowl window is in question. It's open. I'm never going to say it's closed, but the league's getting better. AFC, Lamar Jackson now is hungrier than ever that his tight end dropped a fucking 2-point conversion.
Oh, Baltimore's falling apart.
Listen.
Lamar Jackson's burning.
No, Lamar Jackson's still there. Josh Allen is still there. And you have a division now that has a coach that knows all your plays and knows everything about Dan Campbell. So I'm not saying it's not possible, but the road gets tougher. And Dan Campbell, I thought, knew it. When he said last year, this is tough, you never knew. Last year and this year was a prime chance. Now, there's still great opportunities. I'm not saying it's closed. I'm not saying it'll never happen, but it's going to be harder to accomplish. And I think doubt should creep in. Listen, You can find fanboys that hug these guys nuts 24/7. I'm telling you that the path to win a Super Bowl is harder. When you change coordinators, you're going to change a roster. It's going to be harder. It's still possible because I believe in Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes. But to sit there, remember, half the people went on the air, and I did as well. I have to own it. I predicted a 10-point victory. I didn't respect the Commanders enough. Half the people went on the air and said, oh, the Lions are going to blow out the Commanders. They didn't give any credence to the notion that it happened. So you can twiddle away with your analytics 24/7. I know them. I pay people to tell them to me, and I understand it. But there is a feel aspect of it that you still should respect. I think it's going to be Dennis Allen and Tanner Engstrand. I think that Engstrand, if you give Goff the input, passing game is important. I would give it a 51% chance. It's Engstrand. 49. It's Scotty Montgomery. I do think Goff's input is going to be serious. And I do think that Engstrand's in the mold of if continuity of language, terminology would keep the offense rolling and everything like that. So I think Dennis Allen, you go with relationships, but I'm going to throw it out there. Please, universe, Robert Saleh aggression. It would be great. It would just, and again, I'm biased, pure bias. Like I know all the percentage of blitz and man versus zone and all that kind of stuff. It's all great. And there are weaknesses that he has in his defenses at times that got exposed by the Jets, but I'm just being personal. I would love it because I feel like as my source and Rolodex grows, a Lebanese guy would also like to talk to a Lebanese guy. So I kind of, would believe that. And I think that Dennis Allen, you go with what you know. And at the same token, Dan's loyal. I think that there is credibility with Calvin Shepard having been here. So 51, Dennis Allen, 49, Calvin Shepard. But I think it's Dennis Allen and Tanner Engstrand is my guess.
There you go. Before we get you out of here, Doc, give me your Super Bowl prediction because we got championship games this weekend. What do you think?
Per the Trey Wingo, let it play out. I don't give a fuck model. Why do you really care about the Super Bowl if the Lions aren't in it? Isn't that what is the classic Trey? Oh, okay. No, I do give a fuck. I'm gonna watch. Definitely.
But to be fair, he did say Super Bowl first and then the draft. So
yeah. No, I get it. The let it play out answer is hilarious at all times. But that's and guys, I like the natural. I am not a hardcore journalist. Give me facts because that shit puts me to sleep. I want to give opinion. I want to talk shit. Like that's why I became a podcaster and not a newspaper guy delivering it and stuff like that. I want to have some fun with this opportunity. You know what I mean? And give opinions and share because the natural answer will be, well, we got to wait and see. We got to see what happens in the AFC. I don't know what's going to happen when but I'll give you my opinion. I think that the Eagles will squeak out a contest against the Commanders. It'll be a great game. And I think it's going to be the Eagles and the Bills. And I think that it's time for Josh Allen to get the monkey off of his back. I think that the defense of the Bills is credible and they will handle business. Whenever anybody can stand with the doc and say, scram, partner, I respect that. So I think it's time for Josh Allen. He did it before, but man, I know it's tough to bet against the Chiefs. And you guys are very creative with your AI photos. There was one that was, I don't even know if it's suitable for air, seeing Andy Reid on the ground with the refs. You guys are very creative out there in the AI landscape. Doc saw it. I enjoyed it. I laughed a little bit. Mahomes kissing the refs is always up there as well. So it's a great narrative, but give me Bills and Eagles, and Bills win it and in a good game.
These AI, man.
They're fun, dude. They're fun.
Ben Johnson won out of pocket.
Shout out to the heavyweights. Easy, dude. Some of these.
Yeah, they're good, man. They're good stuff. You guys are creative. That's something I'm not going to get into with all the AI stuff. I'm just having fun using my voice to share. And listen, guys, I appreciate the opportunity to come on. You can delay me anytime. I love the chat for saying, but if you would have bumped me, it would be no problem. I could listen to Trey Wingo tell stories all the time. But I think that me following him, I held my own coming in for what you guys were looking for. I think.
Yeah, no, Doc, we love you. We love you, and we appreciate you. And honestly, the off season, Doc, I know you're going to be you got the draft, you got the off season. So I'm looking forward to it. We're looking forward to it. We appreciate you as always. Check out the doc, all your off-season content, Detroit Lions on Sports Illustrated, and we will see you next Wednesday, Doc. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Anytime you fire it up, thank you guys. I appreciate it. It was a good show. Trey Wingo and the doc. Oh my God.
Come on.
Do some numbers. Hey, and remember, clickbait is great as long as you can debate. Talk soon, fellas.
Oh,
Doc got him as like Dr. Seuss back there.
It's Dr. Seuss doc bag. I mean, that's
wow.
That's impressive. I mean, you know what, fellas? That was
what a day.
Yeah, what a day, man.
Great
Trey
show.
Wingo, one of the most down to earth, and that's the thing we kind of talked about is like we're huge fans of Trey Wingo, but getting a chance to talk to your idols and actually just pick their brain on ball, and he's much chiller than you. I mean, wasn't sure if you were going to get a buttoned up Trey Wingo or like Trey Wingo with the boys.
That's
He was just hanging with the boys. So that's and then the doc's always for the boys. So it's like you get two great guys, man. I love that. Hey Doc, though. Hey Doc, can we cool on the shade? You know, when you join the show, you just hey Doc, listen. I mean, Trey Wingo might have hopped off and said, "You know what? I'm going to tune into these guys. Good young men."
Doc went at him right away.
He's probably looking at his phone.
Doc's just shooting at Trey Wingo. But no, that was fun. We appreciate all you in the chat as well, man. Just the support. You guys were great. I mean, commenting, great interview, great show. We appreciate the hell out of all of you, man. We just hit 12,000 subscribers.
Shout out.
12,000.
Thank you guys.
That is just like Trey Wingo said, we do it because we love it. We love it.
And it was basically a year pretty much. Remember, like championship round? That's like kind of when we started up.
Yeah.
12K, 12 months. Like that. Good. Great. I mean, there's not many, especially like sports shows, I should say, that can get that volume that quick. And so
the people,
shout out to the people. Shout out Hefe. Shout out Boone. We don't want to do it with anybody else, especially Caleb, Unk. They're not here right now, but those guys, huge help.
Oh, yeah.
Shout out to people, man.
Caleb's throwing up Trey Wingo clips. Like, Caleb, shout out. Mike's golfing. He just texted me. He said, I shot an 84. I said, we got to face Trey Wingo out there. Doc and Trey Wingo.
Oh, yeah. Is it Mike's in like a bachelor party, right?
Yeah, he's in Florida. So shout out to Mike, too.
Shot at 84. Dude, hey, Trey Wingo pulling out a 73. I was like, man. What the funny part is Jeff started the convo like, man, I'm just trying to break 100. And he goes, yeah, my best round 73.
I know. I'm going to be honest. I didn't want, when he said, well, tell me, I was like, oh, no. I got to tell him about the time I whiffed a 4 foot putt, man.
All right. And now we are joined with Sketch who's joined the show.
That's foul. That's foul.
Yeah.
That's foul. Eyes starting to get strained.
Oh man, so you're right, Boone. That's. I mean,
it's with the boys having fun,
Hey, by the way, we got some super chats and memberships. I want to make sure we get to Dante151. He's thanked for the $5. Pistons 97, Hawks 75 after 3. That's 6th seed. It's been a while now. Did they win? I mean, if you could check for me, this might age poorly. I think they did, though. That 6th seed is ours. Let's fucking go. Also, look at you guys moving up in the world with interviewing Trey Wingo. Appreciate you, Dante. Dante also donated another $2. Says Hawks are 5 of 35 from 3 against the Pistons. Love that. The good guys. Appreciate the $2. Says they still put up 31. Get a defense, Doc. Benji, my guy, appreciate the Crunch Time membership. And Dante, again, with another $2. Here's a happy note. Pistons are now the 6th seed. So there you go. Love that, man. That's awesome. In the chat, Pistons W.
And confirm from a source that Pistons did in fact pull off the W.
Can the night get any better? After a rough week, I mean, Trey Wingo, the Doc, and then a Pistons W.
Come on now.
It's been a great day.
Come on now.
It really has.
Ohio State natty. Come on now.
What?
Another day to be a champion. Feels great.
It does feel good to be a national championship, isn't it?
You can't say it this year, Boone. Can't say it this year.
I mean, no, I'm still a national champion. I still have won a national championship.
The goalpost is moved.
I was still a part of the team.
I'll
just
let
like,
you have it, Boone.
it's just like when we won it, you were like, hey, we won one too. So you're like, it's like, yeah, fair enough. You did. You are a national. Klotz is a national champion. I am a national. Booner is a national champion. It's a great feeling. I got to drink the champagne, smoke the cigar. I know we wanted that. Like, dude, I wanted everything in the world. I'll tell you guys this. Like, And I was thinking about this the other day, like a week or so ago, when we were talking about the national championship. I just remembered like the champagne and the cigar, and I was like, how unbelievable would it be able to do that with like all of the boys for the Lions? I was just like, and then obviously we lost.
We
So
get
the thought,
robbed.
yeah, like
Ben
dude, I
Johnson,
remember making
Jared
that
Goff,
video.
They robbed us. They robbed
I've
us.
made so
Boone.
many videos in my life and content, and my favorite one to this day was after the national championship out there with Flannel and Nick.
Flannel was spazzing.
KG was out there.
Yeah,
KG was
Flannel
out there with us.
Flannel. It was a vibe. It was a vibe.
Flannel. I mean, just grabbing the bottle. I mean, Nick as well. Just the
Nick,
champagne
Nick
just
goes
straight
hard.
in my eyes, and the smoke's going in my eyes, and they're just like champagne, and I'm like, I can't see. It was like that was one of probably my funnest moments. A national championship was unbelievable. Congrats,
Hey,
Klotzy.
What a show today, fellas. Great work. Appreciate all you in the chat just for really supporting, tuning in every single night. I mean, we couldn't be doing this without y'all. So we appreciate you. Get your merchandise. I'm wearing the hat right now. Crunch time. Love this hat. It's very comfortable. We have new stuff. Booner's got the Kings of the North new hoodie we have on the store as well. It's not just Kings of the North, NFC champions. I know it's still rough right now.
NFC North champions. NFC North champions.
Yes, NFC North champions. So get your merch. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll be back 8 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Love you
Until
guys.
then, appreciate you all and have a good night.
Peace.